Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast. My name is David,
I'm Colin.
and this is the podcast where we're going to talk all things episodes 1, 2, 3. Just do a little recap on that, and then we'll talk about what we think we're going to get in episodes 4, 5, and 6. And this is a pre-show. We're going to have spoilers for episodes 1, 2, and 3. So before we get started, though, we want to thank all of our awesome Patreon members out there. Starting with Lee McCallan, Kevin Leininger, Deb McCaffrey, Zach Netzel, Maya Morris, Adam Haber, Front Row King, Cam from Indiana, Mariana Atia Arnold, Rest Jedi 27, and Alex Blundell. Thank you so much for the awesome love and support out there. Also, if you go to legionsabers.com for your next lightsaber or other accessories, you can use the code STUFF at checkout and get 15% off. And also at Legion Sabers are running something really cool right now where you can actually win I believe it's a Tatooine blanket.
Yep.
And I know there's several people out there online, other influencers, podcasters that are promoting that. So check that out. It looks super cool. And you're also donating to a good cause. So Colin.
Go. Yes.
Given this week we've had to kind of digest and process what we saw in episodes 1, 2, and 3, has your opinion changed at all?
No. I mean, so I saw a lot of different reviews from people. People who have said that the whole point of Star Wars is to be, is to escape from reality. And when they brought in a lot of, very real world themes into some in episode 1 and 2 of the season, but more in episode 3 of Andor, it was very it kind of took you out of it for a second, and it kind of put you into like okay, they put that in there. That was an interesting call. And Star Wars is not just meant for one audience, it's meant for all. So they have to like kind of, kind of hit all the marks and everything. And I've seen, I mean, overall, Star Wars was meant for 12-year-olds. That is, that was George Lucas's mission from day one. It was meant for 12-year-olds, for kids. It was never meant for adults. Star Wars adapted over time. I think David and I are very fine examples because him and I we are both adults and we both love Star Wars a lot. But at the end of the day, Star Wars was always meant for kids. That was the vision that George Lucas made. And when we saw a form of SA in Star Wars, we just got to be careful because sometimes, like if you're on YouTube and stuff like that, they can trigger certain like videos, so we have to be careful of how we say it. So with having a form of SA in Star Wars now on screen, because it has been hinted in the past, it definitely has in in Return of the Jedi and a bunch of different Star Wars projects. It definitely has, but never have the words ever been said on screen, RAPE, which is, to me, it was kind of like, oh, they put that in Star Wars. Okay. And when I mean Star Wars, I mean they put that on, on the actual screen, and they actually had someone say it. I haven't seen Star Wars officially comment on it yet. I could be wrong about that, but I haven't seen them actually say anything directly about that scene in general. And I'm curious if they ever will. But overall, I thought the first 3 episodes were, like, hey, we are back. And again, in my opinion, I don't think Andor is really meant for the younger audience. I think the first season always was that indicator, especially with like the first 3 episodes, like of just the different themes and everything. So going into the season, I kind of had the same mindset, and then after the 3rd episode, I was like, yeah, absolutely, the show is not meant for the younger audience. And I know Craig, he was saying that he would normally watch all the new Star Wars projects with his daughter. He felt like the show was not really pointed towards her age. So if you're trying to show this show to your kids, it's totally your call. But it is pointed towards more of the adult audience on that side. But yeah. How do you feel about it, David?
I just want to recognize some people in the chat here. And also, we have our buddy Kyle joining us from the Fandom Podcast Network. Hey, Kyle, how's it going?
Oh, just escaping some Imperial spies, guys hunting me. Still haven't learned how to fly a TIE Avenger, so I'm kind of screwed. But
yeah,
it's all good.
They can be tricky. Yeah,
yeah. I was gonna say, I think we're all in the same boat, Kyle.
They didn't give me the switch to switch my Y-axis around, so I couldn't.
That's always the classic issue, I think. So yeah, Noah Richer is watching us on YouTube. He says, "Boys, how we doing?" Blue Milk Intelligence says, "TJ in the house." He also brings up, honestly, didn't mind it because it was handled carefully. The only thing that made me cringe was the fact that they said the R word.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think it was handled very, very well, because you think about the whole situation. It's like, how do you reconcile that with Star Wars and it being something that the family can still watch? I don't really remember any like marketing or whatever for Andor that said like mature audiences or whatever, but I think it does have the rating at the top.
TVMA, I think it hits TVMA. Can I hop in on that real quick? Because Kevin and I just recently talked about that on our most recent issue of Culture Class.
Yeah.
Wanted to see what you guys thought. Because one of the things we talked about is should there have been maybe some kind of warning before that episode?
That is what I said on the post show. There should have been some type of trigger warning, and there wasn't. And maybe they didn't do it because they wanted it to have that kind of shock value towards the audience. But
I could have just said there's something very mature in this episode or something without revealing necessarily what it was. But we were also talking about, if you're going to do something like this in Star Wars, Andor is the show to do it, because it is considered the more mature show. And I think one of the things with Andor, especially I think in this season, because I think we're going to see a lot worse things than what we saw in episode 3, but you're going to see the true evil of the Empire, the real underbelly of the Empire in this show. And I think you're going to see why people turn to get this. Is really, it's not kind of the classic hero. Oh, these are just the bad guys. You're going to see why so many people join the rebellion against the Empire. And I think that's what this show is. A big chunk of it is going to be about, is the atrocities that the Empire was doing, especially in the Outer Rim, where there wasn't really anybody to police them.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is that if you watch certain episodes of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, they actually did have a trigger warning ahead of some of those episodes about the Order 66 stuff, of where we actually see Anakin, kill some of the kids in that. There actually was a trigger warning in the beginning of the episode. So I'm shocked that they didn't have one for the 3rd episode in Andor. So I'm curious why they didn't do that. And again, I haven't heard any official statement from Disney or Lucasfilm about it. I haven't seen anything, but I would love to hear like the mindset of Tony Gilroy and the rest of the team on that particular, scene of why they came up with that and why they, thought that it was a thing that needed to go into the show.
Well, I think the other thing too is you got to look at the mindset of Disney Plus, and I bring this up because look what we just saw in Daredevil. I mean, that was the most violent thing we've ever seen come on a Disney signed thing. Usually in the past, when you go back into the 80s and 90s, Disney had Touchstone. So they put all that kind of stuff there, or they would be putting it under Hulu. But here it's under the Disney Plus logo. And I think that's a big shift in whatever is going on at Disney right now to say, okay, we're okay with this. We realize that we have a little bit more of an adult audience too. But I think, like you guys said, you are talking about a Star Wars show. You're still going to have kids watching this show. I just really think some kind of just brief warning that this episode contains some mature content. You may want to watch it with your children, because even though we know Andor is darker, has a harder edge to it, this was up a level. This is a whole new thing when you're introducing to it. And I have a feeling there was a lot of parents who probably ended up having to have some conversations with their kids after this episode.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I was talking about before you hopped on, that George Lucas's vision for Star Wars always was that Star Wars was meant for kids. It was meant for 12-year-olds, and years later it adapted to the adult audience like us, and for them to do that and not have a trigger warning, again, I'm just shocked by it, because the point of Star Wars, and I've heard other podcasters say this, but we are watching this to escape from reality. We are watching this to be immersed into something that maybe is a little bit familiar with what we know, but in the full scheme of things, it's to immerse yourself into a fantasy, into a science fiction story that is making you escape from the real world. And when you bring in these real world elements, it's taking you out of the great charm of what Star Wars is. So to me, it was a real interesting call to actually put a scene like that into into a Star Wars show. I was very, kind of shocked by it when it happened, and there was no trigger warning. So I'm just curious, and I'm curious of what their statement is going to be if they ever do talk about it, because the day after, all the fans, everyone who watched it was talking about it. So I'm really curious of what their official statement's going to be.
And I don't know about you guys, it really didn't even hit me until after the episode ended. Like what I just saw, I was like, this is maybe the darkest moment in Star Wars history, just on a level of content. But then I also, looking at it, I don't think any other Star Wars creator does this. I think Tony Gilroy is the only one they allowed to get away with this within Star Wars, because they basically gave Tony Gilroy carte blanche. It's like that was his agreement. I'm telling my Star Wars story. I'm telling this story, and I'm not going to be handcuffed by it. And I think that's a factor in it too. Again, it's a fine line, and we look back even at Rogue One, and Rogue One was a darker story, and we knew what we were getting with Andor, but to take it quite this far, I think it, without trying to desensitize it, it fits with the world of Andor and what some of the things they're trying to do. Yes, it's extreme, but on the other hand, where's the balance? It's that fine balance between, okay, I want to make a darker show, I want to make a Star Wars show more for adults, but it's still Star Wars. And that, I think that's where a lot of people are struggling. I think adults understand it a little bit, but then they look at it, it's Star Wars. I want to be able to share this with my kids. But I think because of having all this Star Wars out there now with Disney Plus, with movies coming back out, and there's a feeling that, okay, we can make something for everybody. We can have the little kid, the Star Wars for kids, but let's make something for the adult fans of Star Wars who have grown up in Star Wars. And again, it's jarring without question, but I think with Gilroy and with this show, there's a sense they are trying to establish a little bit of sense of realism of, it's not just all lightsabers and space fighter fights. There's some real gritty things and bad things happening here. And I think for us as Star Wars fans, we're just not used to seeing that aspect of it and taking it this far. So we're still trying to wrap our minds around it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Again, I think the biggest thing for me was that there was no trigger warning. If there was a trigger warning, that could have maybe, help the fans that were not expecting it, you know, and embrace them more, because, you know, what happens if there was a victim of SA uh that was watching the show and they didn't know that this was going to pop up, and it happened, and they were watching Star Wars 2 kind of escape reality, and then this, you know, scene popped up, and it, you know, could bring back some things. And I just, in my opinion, I think they should have put a trigger warning.
Hmm.
That's just my thing, like of my point of view about it. Having Andor being pointed towards more adults is fine, but if you're going to put something like this in there, I think there should have been like some type of
Well,
warning.
yeah. And when I did my research on it for when we covered Andor on the Phantom Podcast Network too, I actually found out this scene is very reminiscent from one of the Legends comics. It was almost
Yep.
perfect, almost pulled completely from it. I mean,
Yeah.
the names are so similar that, so maybe that's where they felt like they could get, maybe it was okay to do it because they done something like this in the comics. But it is different when you're talking about putting it in live action compared to a comic book story. And so, but the other thing I look at too when I did my rewatch of the 3 episodes was, as an adult, you could see this coming in the storyline. They were kind of laying the groundwork for this. What I'm more surprised about was, if you would have even went back, I would say 10 years ago, you probably get just everything from the one trooper out, the one officer outside hearing everything and hearing the final shot, and you wouldn't actually see what happened within the domicile.
Right.
And I think now, with different sensibilities and just the way the world is, I think there's less fear of that. But the other thing I wonder too, you talk about a trigger warning. If Andor's coming out weekly instead of 3 episodes at a time, is there a trigger warning too? Maybe because they felt like, we're putting out 3 episodes at a time, if we put in this trigger warning, we're taking people out of, because most people watch this back to back to back. Maybe they felt like it would take them out. Again, I think there should have been something either way, but would be curious if they were doing this as a weekly broad show, would there have been more thought to putting in a trigger warning?
David, what are your thoughts?
Didn't really bug me at all. I really didn't think anyone would this would be as big a talking point as it was. I mean, I've seen a lot of TV and a lot of movies in my life, and this seemed very tame to me. I mean, trigger warnings are like a new thing. I've never really seen trigger warnings on stuff like growing up. I mean, you just either heard it or you actually saw the action.
Right.
We didn't see any action happening. It was just a word. But that's just my generation. I know like younger generations, they want like trigger warnings and stuff, but it didn't really faze me. I didn't really even think about it. It was kind of an afterthought because this is Andor. This is very gritty. This is very real world. This really puts the war. It really emphasizes the war in Star Wars. I remember back in 2015 when I went to the Future Filmmaker panel, and Gareth Edwards said it. This is going to be Star Wars. Wars, emphasis on the wars.
Yeah.
And then he directed Rogue One. Fantastic film, one of my favorite Star Wars films. But as far as Andor goes, I mean, yeah, Tony Gilroy's taking it to the maximum, taking it right to the edge. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. But yeah, I don't think I thought it was going to be this big a talking point.
I think it is, David, because it's happening in Star Wars, and when you add those real world elements into something like this, it's gonna throw people off because, you know, when you think of Star Wars, you don't think about this stuff. Like of what Kyle was saying earlier, you think of lightsabers, you think of blasters, you think of ships blowing up, not these real world elements. When you entered into the world of the prequels, you introduced politics, and then you had the Clone Wars, and then you entered the underworld, and you had drugs like spice and stuff like that. And all these years, it's just building up more of these real world things that that people can be like, oh wait, I've seen that before. But now we've gotten to this point where a lot of real world elements are in Star Wars now, and that happened with Andor. I think the first season of Andor was that thing that was like, okay, we're trying this, let's see where it goes. Okay, that worked, we'll do that, but enhance it more in season 2. And the first 3 episodes were a big indication of that. So I'm really curious of where the rest of these different themes and different aspects are gonna, of where they are gonna continue to go in this second season. We know where the show ends. We know exactly where it leads directly into, but there's certain aspects of what's going on in the show that we don't know about. We don't know exactly how the Gorman massacre is actually going to happen. We don't, know the fate of some of the characters that we fell in love with in season 1. So it's just like anything is possible. Anything can happen. And
this is not your happy ending Star Wars show. This is
it's not
yub at the end. And
yeah,
when the Gorman massacre happens, I think if that happens during the show, which I think it's going to, I think it's going to make what we saw in episode 3 possibly just look.
It will 100% happen. Yeah. It won't happen this week. It will happen next week, just because we know it happens like 2 years before the events of Rogue One. And right now we're, hang on, year 2, year 3. Actually, 1 year before the events of Rogue One and A New Hope. So we know it's gonna be the episode 7, 8, and 9 is what the Gorman massacre will end up being. And I've got a feeling that that's gonna be like one of the most violent episodes that we see. It's got the word massacre right in there, so there's gonna be a lot of casualties. There's probably going to be some type of bombing, someone's going to have a sniper and shoot someone. Like, I've got a feeling that we are going to see a lot of violence in those 3 episodes. And they are not going to sugarcoat it, because it's Andor, and we know that they have no limits now. Like, it's just out the door, so they could really do anything, for violence wise. And it's just going to be interesting to see what they end up doing.
Let me throw out a thought here. I'm curious what you guys think, because I know one of our big things with this in the Star Wars community has been, we want more stuff on the big screen. Do you think maybe because of what Andor's content is and how dark it is, that they wanted to get through Andor before they started putting stuff on the big screen again, because they wanted to have the big screen stuff kind of lift people up again after going through this Andor experience? Because I don't see watching the show. The show is not going to end on a positive note. We're going right into Rogue One. There's going to be a lot of tragedy. There's going to be a lot of darkness, and there's probably more darkness than we've ever seen in Star Wars. And we know we have Mandalorian and Grogu. We know Starfighter's coming, and those are probably going to be a little bit lighter films. Maybe it's, as the old saying goes, it's darkest before the dawn. We're hitting the darkest part of Star Wars now, and then it kind of lifts us up back into more of the positive stuff. When I say positive, not the heavy storylines that Andor proposes. And I think again, it's the aspect of who you've got on the creative of this show. And I think this is really, Andor was always planned to be, this is going to be the different Star Wars. This is the adult Star Wars. And I think that was always the intention. And I think in a way it's a very good thing, because I think that's something that Lucasfilm kind of forgot about, was that, okay, our fans have grown up. Yes, they have a new generation of kids, but we need to do something for those fans who've been with us since Star Wars, who have grown up and have different sensibilities now, than giving us something that George always, I want Star Wars always to be for 11-year-olds. You need to realize your fan base. That was fine way back in the day of the original trilogy and even the prequel trilogy, because your fan base was still younger. But now most of your fan base from that time were in our 50s or were or older. And we have a different sensibility, and we don't always want to be thrown something that's I don't want to childish. It sounds like a bad word, but it's the only word I can really think of right now. That we want something that we can wrap our minds around a little bit too, not just something for the kids. And I think I give Lucasfilm credit for making that decision to do that with this show.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you hit it on the head there with the whole sensibility thing and the culture and the pop culture and the zeitgeist and censorship today. If you look back at A New Hope, Star Wars 1977, it's not a PG film. It was rated as PG, but you see limbs being chopped off. You see humanoids being,
like
guys choked to death.
Yeah.
Choked,
shot, blown up. Yeah.
Whole planets being destroyed. It always like puzzled me why Star Wars is rated PG.
Because
I don't
it
know
would
how
have
they
been
got away with
PG-13 if it existed, but it wasn't heavy enough to be R. So you're looking at the rating system, right? That existed at the time too.
Right. But then PG-13 got introduced with Indiana Jones, and then they could have changed it, but they never did.
Right.
And then they did the re-releases with the special editions. It was still PG. So I don't know. I don't know if they like grandfather that in or what.
Because the first Jaws was also rated PG. It wasn't rated PG-13 either. So we didn't get that kind of rating system until much later. But
I mean, I think the other thing though, when we talk about Andor with the adult side of it, is look at the relationships between the people. These aren't relationships that kids are going to understand, especially Cyril's relationship with his mother and those things. I mean, that is a very adult and a little bit creepy relationship that we're seeing developed. There's some things going on there, and I'm thinking, if I have a kid, I don't know if I'm necessarily at a certain age if I want them watching the show, because I think they're going to be more confused by it than anything, and they're going to be bored by it.
Yeah. I'm going to read some of the comments here. Mariana says, the only thing that shocked me about the attempted R is there was no trigger warning.
Yep.
Yeah, we established that. Noah Richards says, honestly, I'm glad to see Star Wars tackling more mature concepts. It's a franchise that needs to so that it stays relevant. There's a lot of data that suggests its biggest demos between 18 and 30. Yeah, I haven't heard like kids talk about Andor at all. But I mean, it is Star Wars.
I don't think parents are letting kids watch Andor. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, me entering parenthood here in a couple of weeks, I've been having these kind of talks with my wife and of just this mindset of being like, when is the best time to introduce him to like certain things and certain aspects and stuff like that. With Andor, it's let's face it, it's not following your traditional blueprint of Star Wars. It's kind of its own thing. Like, if you take Andor out of the Star Wars element, I still think Andor would still be a good show. But the thing is, though, it doesn't feel like your traditional Star Wars. So I don't know if I would show my kid Andor right away, maybe later in life when he's older. But, if you were to, do that with the Mandalorian, I mean, of where I would introduce him to the Mandalorian show, I feel like, I would do that because of that is traditional Star Wars to me. Even though it's kind of doing its own thing, it has a lot of the main Star Wars themed elements, while Andor is very, very dark toned and it's not meant for kids.
Well, let me ask this question then. Do you feel Rogue One is traditional Star Wars?
No.
I think
it's
it's its own thing. And
I
think I think there's a lot of the fan base that for a long time I said, I want to get outside of the box. I want to see Star Wars outside of its box. I want to see it explore different things. And I think that's one of the things that's great about Andor is that it is exploring a different side of the Star Wars universe. It's seeing the underbelly of it. It's seeing that, hey, you know what? It's not always what you see on Clone Wars or what you see in these movies where the bad is there and you know what's bad, but you don't necessarily get the full concept of it. With this show was intended for adults. It was.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and I think we all knew that going in. I think we knew what we saw in Rogue One. We knew the story it was going to tell, and we knew it was going to not be a show that was going to be for a younger Star Wars fans who maybe would watch Rebels or the prequel trilogy or any of the trilogies. But again, I think this is where it's important because I think there's so many different venues and so many different avenues to explore now. I think Marvel has the same problem in some issues, is that you get stuck in a formula and you have this big universe that has so many aspects to it. You need to develop and grow. You've got to explore your different aspects. And I think that's why Andor is so important, because it is showing you different aspects of the universe of Star Wars. And I think that's very important.
Yeah. I mean, war. We're talking about war here. I mean, war is not a kid-safe place. It's interesting that, I mean, it's called Star Wars, and George Lucas intended it for 12-year-olds. But very mature 12-year-olds back in 1977. Blue Milk Intelligence says it's still a solid show. You can see the money, production value on the screen. The choreography and the acting are also top-notch.
And you've got to throw it out to the costuming, especially in. I mean, the money that they put into the costuming and it's so well done and so beautiful. This might be the prettiest Star Wars show actually ever made, as far as cinematography and the look of it and the feel of it. Again, this feels like a movie production, not a TV show production.
Yeah, they definitely upped the budget. Mariana says, I agree with you, Noah. As a woman, I applaud them for not shying away from the harsh reality for women in a time of war and in general. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. She also says, they also suggested attempted R in Harry Potter, which is extremely marketed to kids when Hermione is running away in the woods.
Yeah.
Noah says, do y'all think we have another block of episodes where Cassian stories kind of placed on the back burner to another figure within the rebellion? I think I know the answer to that because I read a review of someone that watched the entire thing, but it wasn't spoilery, but he kind of alluded to that. And I'll kind of talk about it in a non-spoilery way. It seems like, yes, they're going to concentrate more on Cassian. They talked about these first 3 episodes as like the run up to the full out sprint that we're going to start to get, starting with episodes 3, 4, 5, 6.
So. That's the point that brings me up, because I haven't had a chance to talk with you guys. That was kind of my one knock on these first 3 episodes was we have this great opening scene with Cassian, and he's killing it. Diego Luna is killing it as Cassian in that opening scene. We're talking to the tech who's come over to the rebellion side, everything with that. And then it's just, I understand, and we have so many rich characters, but I really felt like I needed a little bit more Cassian Andor in these episodes. I would, because one of the most irritating things to me in these first 3 episodes is when he's actually captured and you see his mind working and how he's reading these people and learning these people so fast. And that's what's so great about this character. And we aren't to the fully developed Cassian Andor we got in Rogue One. They're building that character, and I love how they're doing it. But I would have loved to have seen a little bit more of that, maybe a little less of the wedding or something like. Because there were times it's like they went back to the wedding, and I'm like,
did you not like the wedding?
No, I liked the wedding. I just think they maybe spent a little bit too much time there, because I think there's so much going on. They could have spent a little more time in certain places.
What do you mean? Mon Mothma getting turned at a wedding and they're just raving it out? Come on.
Come on. I'm always down for a Matrix rave in my Star Wars. But I mean, and let's be honest, Mon Mothma is probably the second best character on this show. She is
fantastic. She is absolutely amazing. And what makes me happy is that they brought back the actress from Star Wars Episode 3 from a deleted scene that actually never made it to the big screen. So that made me so happy that they cast the same actress and that she
Genevieve O'Reilly.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, she is.
She
great.
actually, because if she came back in Rogue One, but then she also came back and voiced the character in Star Wars Rebels, and then she, came back in Andor. So it's just, it's so cool that they were able to keep that character alive, and then she was also in Ahsoka, which I was not expecting, just because it's definitely a different time period. But yeah, so I'm excited for her speech, and not this week's episode, and this week's episodes, but next week's episodes, because this speech is what she is saying the speech directly to the Emperor in the Imperial Senate, and then she leaves. So I am really intrigued to see that scene. Hopefully we see Ian McDermott back as the Emperor while she's giving that speech. I think that's what made that whole of when they described it in Rebels so appealing, because you are talking to the most evil. Yes,
exactly. The most evil podcaster has joined us already. So
yes,
welcome, young Skywalker. You'll no longer need those. Hold on, I wasn't prepared for this. I could have prepared better.
Yeah. You are doing a great
Lord.
job.
You should always be prepared.
Yeah.
Gods, leave us. Colin, give in to your anger. With each passing moment, you make yourself more my servant.
I'm afraid the shield generator will be quite operational when your friends are.
I'm afraid the deflector shield will be quite operational for your friend's arrival.
Okay, so it was Andor.
I will not be making appearances on this show. Unfortunately.
You probably will, like some of small form. Could you imagine
contact my representative on Naboo? Oh, I blew up Naboo. I forgot.
What? No. Naboo doesn't get blown up.
It happened off screen in The Last Jedi.
No.
You didn't
wait,
see
what?
Oh, yes. It happened off screen, like the death of Admiral Akbar.
Okay. All right. You need a okay. Okay.
The rebels are even preventing him from transmitting.
My goodness. Wow.
Communications disruption can only mean one thing.
Invasion.
Craig 5 showing up on the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh jeez. Well, there you go.
I don't think Palpatine or Vader are showing up. That's what they're saying in the articles.
I don't know, man. I think the Emperor will show up. I think in a way, just because of I think the reason why that the Mon Mothma speech is going to be so powerful is because she's going to be talking directly to Palpatine, and if they don't show his face, I want to see like a blurred image of Palpatine in the background, and it's him.
It's going to be a back shot, so it can be any actor who fits that bill doing it, but it's going to be a back shot.
I would just like to see the glow of his eyes. That would be sick.
I hope so. But what was the article that came out that said they don't consider this a spoiler, that Vader and the Emperor isn't showing up, and Tony Gilroy said that writing for the Emperor was too heavy. And that Darth Vader doesn't have much to say. I mean, okay.
It's a Rolling Stone article, and it says Andor showrunner reveals season 2 secrets and why writing Darth Vader is limiting. So apparently, we're not going to get any Emperor or Vader.
To me, you don't need Vader in this show, especially. But
no,
the Emperor, I think, an Emperor appearance is probably give it. But we were talking about Genevieve O'Reilly. I want to talk about the other thing that has been in the news all week is the recasting for Bail Organa. I mean, Jimmy Smith and Benjamin Bratt is supposed to be.
Is that legitimate?
Don't like recasting anybody. I'm sorry.
I keep hearing a bunch of different things. I'm not gonna, say anything until we hear official reports, because people can say things all they want. Absolutely, they can.
Yeah.
But if it's not coming from a reliable source or an actual official source, I'm not going to buy it. Just because of, I always go to the, to where the actors be like, yeah, I'm not going to be in this. And then you have Ewan McGregor that was lying for a very long time saying, yeah,
can you say
wanna
Andrew
be
Garfield?
Yes. And Andrew Garfield, like all of these actors can say all these things, but we won't know until the actual day it comes out, or if Disney or someone or Lucasfilm is strictly saying, no, we are recasting the character. I have not seen any reports of them actually saying that. So if they said that, that's different.
Speaking of Andrew Garfield, he was actually in Japan with us at Celebration. He was around. Like, people spotted him walking around. It's like, what? He wasn't physically at Celebration, but he was in Japan. What were we going to say, Craig?
I don't know. I feel like they're kind of putting it out there ahead of time so people aren't like disappointed and upset when it happens. Like, I think that's kind of why. Huh?
Who though? Because it's not Lucasfilm saying it. It's just a bunch of different people saying it, right?
Well, I mean, I'm talking about the whole Vader Palpatine thing as well.
Oh, okay. I thought we were still
kind of all of it. Like, if Tony Gilroy says they're not showing up, I think he's just preparing us and being blunt about it. I don't think he's surprising us or hiding it. I really, honestly, that's the only thing I would be disappointed with is them not showing up somewhere, because it feels like at least on the last 3 episodes, they should be in there somewhere, because we're so close to Rogue One.
Yeah.
I could understand not maybe this week or next week, but I feel like the final week they should show up. But
I think having Palpatine show up in some capacity is kind of important for the show, just because of having him in this era of, of just in this timeline in general. I think it's important. He's been mentioned a bunch of times. And he was also mentioned in Rogue One. Having him actually make that appearance would make sense. It's not just plopping him in there, being like, hey, here's a cameo, have fun. It actually makes sense that he's going to be in there. Mon Mothma giving that statement in the Imperial Senate, him not saying that to Sly Moore or
Masamune.
Yeah, thank you. Not saying it to them. I don't think that's as impactful as it would be if she was talking directly to the Emperor. Seeing him just sit there with his Sith eyes glowing and just staring back up at her, giving that speech in like in the home base on like of the main planet that the Imperial like everything is, that is impactful, and saying it directly to the Emperor, that is a big deal. So that's why it to me it is important to have the Emperor in this, not just to plop him there for a cameo. He is a big part of this because he's the person that runs everything. He is in charge of the Empire. He is the Empire. So not to have him in there would, I mean, if the reports end up being true and he's not in there, it is what it is. But having him not in there to me would be a missed opportunity.
I think so
too. It would make that scene more impactful if he was there. So
yeah, we are going to get a big Senate scene.
Yeah. I will say this though too. I am very happy to have Ben Mendelsohn back on my Star Wars screen.
There you go.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, him as Krennic, he was great in Rogue One, and anything he does, he plays evil so well.
Yeah.
He's a little bit more flamboyant in these past episodes.
Yeah.
A little bit different.
How thrown off were you guys when they played that video?
It was weird.
It was like, weird. What's going on here?
Yeah.
It was definitely weird.
It felt something like
something from like the 1920s or something.
Yeah. It kind of felt like not propaganda, but like those videos that you would see, like, during the World War II, like time period. Like it kind of seemed like that. But I don't understand.
It was cool, though.
Yeah. So something that I'm thinking about now is that why would the writing for the Emperor be so heavy? Because they had him show up in the Bad Batch twice, and he actually had a big speech in one of the episodes where he's in the Senate in season 2 of the Bad Batch, and it was good. It was twisted. It was done well, and Ian McDiarmid came back and voiced it, and it was done perfectly. And I didn't feel like
I think
a
it's
cameo
more Gilroy
at all.
I think it's a Gilroy call. He just wants to. But I mean, I think what
bummer.
Gilroy is trying to avoid is while he's staying in canon, he doesn't want to have a lot of things come in that influence the story he wants to tell.
It's Star Wars, though. He is the leader of the Empire. They are facing the Empire.
I agree. I think he should be in there at some point, but
it's such a big deal.
I don't know what Gilroy is thinking here. I don't understand him saying it's too heavy. If anything, I feel like he would be the best equipped to write for the Emperor.
Yes. Because we are talking about a show that is very dark, not pointed towards kids. The Emperor is that character. He is the most evil out of everyone. He killed his master, Darth Plagueis. I don't know if you guys ever read the Darth Plagueis books, but if they ever put that on the screen, that would be the darkest thing that we have ever seen on screen. That's how dark this character is, and he fits the theme and just the premise of the show. He is the perfect person to be in this because he is the Empire. Andor, the Rebel Alliance is fighting the Empire. Palpatine is the Empire. It makes 100% for him to be in this, and for him not to be in this would be kind of crazy to me.
I don't think it's happening.
Insane if he's not.
I don't think it's happening.
And I think that is a huge missed opportunity. I really, really do.
I agree. That being said, I do think whatever we see is going to be incredible. But I do feel like it is a missed opportunity to expand upon Vader. Like, okay, you don't think Vader has much to say, or give him something to say. If anything, I trust Tony to write something relevant for him to say and do.
Right. I also think that, I think if Mon Mothma gives that speech and she's just talking to all of the other senators in there, and maybe it's Masamita and Sly Moore just sitting there, I don't think the speech to me is gonna have such a big impact as it did when they hinted at it in Rebels, because in Rebels they hinted at that she was talking directly to the Emperor in the Senate. So if the Emperor's not there, I kind of feel like they're kind of retconning that scene, and they're kind of taking the importance out of it, because what makes that to me, what made that so important and so impactful is that she was talking directly to the leader of the Empire, and that inspired the other rebels to join, because she stood up directly to the person in charge of the most evil organization in the galaxy. And for them not to have him there and not to have him be part of that big moment is a mistake. It's just my opinion.
Well, we'll see how it plays out in a couple of weeks. I think that'll probably be not any, maybe the last night, right? One of the last 3 episodes where she does it.
Well, it would be next week's episode, because next week's episode will be the Gorman massacre. That's where that's going to happen. The whole point of her giving that speech is because what happens during the Gorman massacre, it makes her leave the Imperial Senate. It makes her actually make the Rebel Alliance like a very public thing, and it makes other systems join her, and just the overall aspect of it. That's how important this event is, and that's why I think the Emperor should be in there. If he's not, he's not. I'm still going to watch it, but I think it's a wasted opportunity if they didn't do it.
I want Colin to protest. I'm not watching.
No, I'm gonna watch it, but I think it's gonna take out the importance of it if Palpatine is not there.
Listen, I think the only Palpatine that you're gonna be seeing is this one right here. Colin, I know you miss me, and I miss you too.
Aw, that's great.
I will give you a big hug in your sleep.
Please don't.
The old Darth Plagueis hug.
Okay.
You'll love it.
This episode just took a dark turn.
Yes, it did.
So yeah, Noah Richard on YouTube says, sad to say, I don't know how much of the general public honestly knows about Andor. Kids weren't even talking about Skeleton Crew. And I was going to mention this earlier, that there wasn't a really big Skeleton Crew presence at Celebration in Japan.
I think Skeleton Crew is one of those things. It's a one and done, and it was
what it kind of feels like.
Darth
Beard says, yeah, Darth Beard on YouTube says, let's face it, the Empire is supposed to be like Nazis, and we all know a lot of R happened in the late 30s, early 40s. Being shocked is just not knowing history.
Well, so in the original Star Wars, for A New Hope, some of the officer uniforms were actual used officer uniforms from World War II. They 100% were. And
I inspired the design.
Okay. But yeah, so there is themes from that time period in there, absolutely. And you do definitely see it in Andor. You see it in Rogue One as well. We were always supposed to not like the Empire. That was the whole premise of it. And with Andor, they even made it more that way in this season. So
it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It absolutely will.
Somehow, and Darth Beard says somehow Naboo returned.
Naboo never left. It's still there.
It's ready to.
It never got blown up. I have no idea where you pull that from, Craig, but it never got blown up.
Listen, there are things that you see off screen apparently in these movies. That
it's not. It's not canon. Naboo never got blown up.
Use the Force and see it. That's how you're supposed to do it now. It's Force Vision movies.
How much of a troll would that be, though, to get all of it and him sit back and laugh in the next article?
That would be great. I hope he does. But
we were talking about this article here. It might be a whole certain point of view type thing. I mean, they might be there, but they don't have like serious dialogue or anything like that. I think that's maybe what he might.
Right, and that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. If he doesn't have, any lines or anything, and he's just standing there, or even if there's like a blur of him and all you see is the glowing eyes, like under his hood, I'm fine with that. I'm content. Yeah. Just him being there and then her doing her speech to him directly, that is what helps inspire the rebellion to become what it becomes. That is what inspires.
I think we got that scene in the trailer, right? She's standing on one of the floating things.
Yes. Yeah. We did see a part of her speech, but we didn't see who she was talking to. You could see she was looking directly out. She's not like this talking to everyone. She's talking directly to someone. She's looking directly at someone, and it's got to be Palpatine. If it's not Palpatine, it's got to be, Slime or Masamita, which I really hope it is Palpatine. I'm really hoping that the article that you're talking about, Craig, is wrong. I really am.
Noah Richard on YouTube says, this show has left me with a lot of questions, thinking about what could have been. With that in mind, what do y'all think about the rebellion would have been like if it had been led by Padme?
I'm not sure Padme was very strategic in her approach. In what we saw, she was very kind of like practical and like she's not sneaky and shady and conniving like a lot of the other politicians. She's more like upfront, honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think she was like, she'd be putting herself out there and not be sneaky like Mon Mothma is doing with Luthen. You know what I'm saying?
She doesn't have the political savvy like Mothma does to play the games.
That's what I mean.
And is Anakin turned or not?
Yeah.
That makes a big difference right there, because she wanted to leave and raise her family on Naboo.
Sure.
This is the big what if question. But I've got to hop off, but before I do, I wanted to mention
2 minutes to showtime.
I know. Before I hop off, I just wanted to mention something really, really quick. This weekend and next weekend is something that I love dearly happening in Michigan. It's called Space Dive, and it is one of the most immersive Star Wars experiences that you can have. It's very similar to Galaxy's Edge, but more immersive. You should go to the link down below, check it out, check out pictures. I just posted a video on my Instagram of what you could expect, like walking through a cantina, walking into like different interactions. So go and check it out. I will be there that second weekend. But yeah, I just had to mention it because Space Dive is fantastic. But okay.
So Colin, just to let everybody know, he stays in costume as Chewbacca the entire event. He even goes to the bathroom in the Wookiee costume.
Not the bathroom part, but last year I actually did wear Chewie like the entire time. So, but yeah, there you go. All right, love you guys. Gotta go. Enjoy the show. Bye.
Well, I think we all got to wrap up here, right? It's almost showtime.
Oh, we got 3 minutes.
Oh, sorry.
Darth Beard says maybe he's writing the background characters that you don't see in the movies, and he wants to keep it that way. These are accompaniments
to the main movies. Yeah,
the main movies. Yeah. No, Richard says we're definitely going to see Luthen die at some point, right? It felt like General Draven sort of filled a similar espionage role. That's what I figure. I think.
I don't think anyone's. I think
there's not going to be a high survival rate by the end of the show.
Right.
I think we may see.
Yeah, Mariana says on YouTube, I need more Palpatine Craig on the lives. Made my day.
I appreciate your convictions. Yeah.
Everyone's gonna die, just like Rogue One. So. Everyone died. Yeah,
I think so.
I mean,
I could see maybe Mon Mothma's daughter and husband living, but I think like Cinta and Bix and all these other characters, I think they're gonna die.
Yeah. All right, guys, that is the podcast. I want to thank Colin for joining, Kyle, of course, and Craig 5. This was the pre-show for episodes 4, 5, and 6, and Palpatine. We're gonna have a post.
Palpatine returned.
Yep, somehow he did on the Star Wars Stuff podcast, which is fantastic. So yeah, we'll have a react show after we watch the 3 episodes. Hopefully, everyone here can join us. Kyle and Craig, you're in Florida, so it's gonna be kind of late for you guys, but. Hopefully you can
do what must be done.
We can probably spare a few minutes from the hyperdrive.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So we'll leave here and we'll watch these next 3 episodes and we'll join back here and I will see you guys in 2.5 hours?
Roughly.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
See you then. May the force be with you. And thanks to everyone in the chat with all your comments, and we'll see you later.